Hello there and welcome to PM Express. There's fresh evidence emerging to support that long-held perception that corruption has become endemic at Ghana's ports and harbour. You recall earlier this week, the special prosecutor, Kisi Ejabing, retrieved over 1 million cedis in revenue shortfall from the La Bianca group of companies. That's a firm wholly owned by a member of the Council of State, Eunice Asamoah, who also is being cited for influence peddling. That aside, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, as we do know it, since the release of these findings, has faced some stiff opposition from both private sector and, in fact, some officials of the Ghana Revenue Authority who claimed that the audits of the custom valuations by the Office of the Special Prosecutor is born out of malice. Even before that dust settles, the civil society group Imani Africa is tonight wading into the controversy with a new report detailing what they describe as bribery, corruption, extortion, cronyism, and patronage, if you want to call it as such, of state-sided actors throughout the port value chain of the Ghana Revenue Authority. So here on PM Express tonight, we're simply unpacking the anatomy of port corruption as we explore with key stakeholders tonight the best approach in plugging the revenue leakages. So let's get to it, shall we? Obviously, we know that this is all stemming from the La Bianca corruption saga, which is just the tip of the iceberg. By the end of the conversation, of course, we'll have Imani demonstrate to us what the true picture may be at Ghana's ports and harbours. But let's start off with the background to the La Bianca case. We do know that the Office of the Special Prosecutor retrieved a little over 1 million Ghana cedis from this said wholly owned Ghanaian firm. That was the first step by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. But beyond that, the amount, as we know, represents a shortfall in import duties which La Bianca was supposed to have paid per the revaluation, if you want to call it of sort, that was done by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Then fast forward, the Special Prosecutor started facing stiff opposition from some officials of the Ghana Revenue Authority. In fact, those at the very top of that organization, specifically at the Customs Division, we heard from the likes of Colonel Dama, who happens to be at the helm of affairs there at the Customs Division. He gave a clap back to the Special Prosecutor, indicating clearly that for him, the findings by the Office of the Special Prosecutor were, quote, hollow and actuated by malice. These were the words of Colonel Dama, and I want you to take that seriously because we'll reflect something to you shortly. Beyond that, the claims, according to Colonel Dama, is actually stemming from some disgruntled officers of the Ghana Revenue Authority who he failed to second to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, and in the end, they ended up there and are obviously attacking the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority. Just when he landed on these statements and commentary began on this, the Ghana Revenue Authority then issued a statement. We'll put that statement out shortly. But for Colonel Dama, one of his problems as well has got to do with the issue and the challenge that the Special Prosecutor actually sent out to the Ghana Revenue Authority. Mind you, the Office of the Special Prosecutor had then directed the Ghana Revenue Authority to put up an integrity plan for the exercise of the customs advance rulings. So we also got a sense that the Office of the Special Prosecutor had wanted to carry out a complete audit way back to 2017. So Colonel Dama decided to respond. He indicated and drew that challenge back to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, indicating that he will ensure that his officers are, first of all, protected against what he describes as intimidation, and beyond that, he's open to any kind of investigations that may follow. Right after that, and that was just coming through at the start of the week, we heard from the Ghana Revenue Authority, just obviously disassociating themselves from the comments that were made by Colonel Dama and indicating clearly that the statements that Colonel Dama was making was actually made, quote, in his personal capacity, and they do not convey, as the Ghana Revenue Authority is pointing out, the opinion of the board and management of the GRA. And that's a very instructive statement, just to put out clearly that the GRA will go out and plug all of the revenue leakages that the Office of the Special Prosecutor is talking about and implement plans that will ensure integrity at our ports. Just when the dust was settling, then the finding came through. What we're learning from Imani Africa tonight, indicating in their fresh report about port governance, here in our country, that they've made some key findings. So let's get to some of the findings. They're talking, first of all, about economic fraud, or what you may want to call the custom type of fraud, which they claim is very prevalent. That word, you need to be on the lookout for it, at the Tema port. And then they go ahead to talk about the nature, the form it actually takes. They talk about the fact that under declaration of imports is supported by the increased undervoicing and issues of utilization of fake invoices, which they claim is being the norm or the game of the day at our various ports. And they claim that is happening simply because of the same problem that the Office of the Special Prosecutor pointed out when he released the report on La Bianca and some officials at the Ghana Revenue Authority, indicating that there's this big issue about influence peddling. So Imani is also going ahead to point out that that trend appears to be the norm at our various ports, and not just in the case of La Bianca, because for them, key of their findings is that quasi-political actors and politically exposed persons, such as Mr. Sumahini, as the Office of the Special Prosecutor's report is describing here as a politically exposed person, leverage their excessive influence and interference of the executive in port administration to engage in corruption and manipulate to facilitate illegal business. That's what the report is also pointing out to us. And beyond that, they're talking about a syndicate, which we also have at our ports, who are engaged in this act that we're talking about. But what's more triggering is that they're not just engaged in the habit of evading tax or whatever it is that you want to describe it. They are also involved in the illicit trade of drugs and some other issues that Imani would further explain to us. So that's the whole story in terms of what's happening when it comes to bribery, cronyism, corruption, and illegal firearm trafficking at the ports. And that's why we're where we are today, looking at the anatomy of port corruption. And you're welcome back to PM Express. Tonight we're looking at the anatomy of port corruption. We just demonstrated to you details of why the La Bianca case could just be the tip of the iceberg. So let me tell you about my guests who are helping me do the discussion tonight. Dennis Asari is a research consultant with Imani Africa. Dr. Joseph Obing is president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. Samson Asake Awingobit is executive secretary for the Importers and Exporters Association. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. So let's start off by unpacking the details of that Imani report. So let me start off with you, Dennis, because time is of essence here and the context. We know that the Office of the Special Prosecutor commenced that investigation way back in 2021, as we're learning of. When did you start that inquiry into this research that we're learning of? And would you say that that coincides with the findings of the OSP?
Okay, good evening to you, Blessed, and let me say good evening to your viewers. So the work that we did, over the years, there's been consistent reports, either in the news or other international report, identifying that there's some sort of corruption, insider manipulation, and criminality happening within the Tema port. And in fact, the Africa Union assessment in 2020 and 2019 points that the Tema port was becoming sort of a transit hub for organized crime, or let me say broadly criminal activities within international maritime trade. So what we needed to understand was that what are the underlying drivers, irrespective of the different systems of operation. So the report that we did, we considered a whole historical analysis of the changes in both institution, technology, infrastructure systems, as well as even the political settlement or even across different governance arrangements, so that we're able to understand where the problem is, what are the political economy factors driving criminality or driving corruption within the port. So it's not specific to a particular time period, but it gives us an understanding of where we are coming from, factors that has driven corruption over the years within this current dispensation in terms of infrastructure improvement, technological improvement, even changes in our governance system or broader port administration system. What are the underlying factors that are driving corruption?
Yeah, and I'm sure that you are looking retrospect.
Yes.
I'm talking about that timeline, because that will give a comparative study as to whether or not we're improving in the first place, and if indeed there are some more areas that we need to work on.
Definitely. So if you look at, in terms of institutional architecture, despite the improvement in the systems, in terms of technology and even infrastructure, you see that the underlying governance system has not changed very much over the years. So you see excessive influence of the executive arm of government over decision-making in the various institutions that manage our port, i.e. the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority, Ghana Revenue Authority, the Customs Division, and all other state agencies that work within the port. And when that happens, what we realize that in terms of critical decision-making, like even advanced ruling, critical decision-making in terms of even exemptions, these become subject to some sort of political influence. So politically exposed persons who are into business tend to leverage some of these influences to get undue advantage or some benefit within the port administration. Then again, when you look at it in retrospect, we're able to identify the various underlying drivers in terms of multiplicity of institutions, lack of harmonization of functions, and even duplication of roles within the port. That creates opportunity for corruption to happen. So what the OSP's work has done is that it's given us an extra evidence to understand that the various factors that we identify to be driving corruption, ideally, in terms of looking at a clear case study just last year, it tends to apply. So the factors we identify are not entirely different from what the OSP...
And in fact, some of the findings of the OSP is being challenged, so we'll put that aside and deal with why you are not putting out a cost to it. Because if indeed you're claiming that there's rot at the port, yes, there should be a cost to it. So why are you not putting that out?
How much are we losing year by year?
Right.
Good. Okay, so what we set out to do is to identify the underlying. That's what we have not been able to do. Over the years, we've done the cost computations. But because we didn't understand the underlying institutional, technological, and governance drivers of this corruption and criminality within the port, we've not been able to address it. And to put it into context, between 2016 and 2020, the World Bank undertook a study where they were identifying import tax gap, and they identified that about 34%, they consider the import tax gap to be about 34%, which means that in terms of the import taxes potential that we have, we are not collecting almost 34%.
I'll take you on that then, because this is a clear case of trade.
Yes.
And in trade, you're bound to make profits or losses at some point. If you look at, for instance, the immediate past year, and Asaki and Wingobit will help us with that, it appears that the GRA is exceeding their revenue target.
Okay.
So how do you juxtapose that finding to a well-functioning GRA if you want to assess them by the findings? Right.
Good. So when we say that in terms of the revenue targets that GRA make in terms of collection of import duties within the port, if you look at it critically and the work that the World Bank did, they engaged the GRA, and this was data from the GRA, and they estimate, I think, the potential import tax to be about $2 billion, and we were doing less, about 34%. So that tells you that they may be hitting over their target, but in terms of our potential, we are not collecting as much as we should be. And we identify that the very drivers that leads to these revenue leakages are the ones that makes corruption happen. So in terms of putting cost to it, if you look at, you have a revenue potential of about $2 billion and about 34% is uncollected. It tells you that sometimes even these targets that are given to this institution, they take cognizance of what they can collect. They also take cognizance of the system inefficiencies, tax exemptions within the port. That all of that wouldn't make them achieve the potential import target. So if you try to use GRA's targets at the port as a benchmark of efficiency and profitability, then you wouldn't be able to understand the capacity or the quantum of taxes that you can collect within the port.
One of the gaps I noticed in the report is that there's a shortfall in terms of the specific cases. You've not mentioned any organization or found any of the GRA officials as culpable of committing the very crimes you're accusing them of. Corruption, cronies, and you even go ahead to talk about influence peddling. Some say you're just, of course, riding in the shine of the OSP's report, and just to say, well, there's LaBianca, and because there's LaBianca, this is our guess are right. This is why we're putting this down.
So, Blazer, let me say that the report that we did, what you read is the abridged version.
Okay.
The institutions and individuals that we found ill report through our engagement with key informants, we need further investigation and a lot of documents to be able to have sound argument and say if we are taking it to the OSP's office or any accountability institutions like YOCO and other partners. We have the sound evidence and everything that we need so that if we are prosecuting, we know where we are going. But what we need to take from the report that we have done is that over the years, there has been assumptions about what is driving corruption.
Right.
But the report we did gave some flesh to the various factors that is leading to the illegality. Notwithstanding the fact that you don't see anybody's name or organization's name being mentioned. That is because it is still information we collected from key informants. And you need a lot of evidence to support some of these key informants' information. But the outcome of this report have been manifested or corroborated by what the OSP is
Okay,
doing.
I'll be asking you what you intend to do with such information or data you've gathered, but I also need to point out that Dr. Joseph Obing is on Zoom. Let me start off with you, Samson Asaki Awingobit. If there's chronism and there's a cartel at the ports, importers and exporters will not be out of this game. So I need to find out from you, are you even corrupt in the first place?
Well,
because you're an importer yourself.
Thank you very much. And good evening to your cherished viewers and my very good friend here.
Right.
I am not corrupt. I am incorruptible. I want to say here that when you push my very good friend from Imani, Ghana, he is saying that he continues hammering that there is an informant, I want to caution him that he should be aware of informant because the special prosecutor gets released a report today saying that there was somebody who petitioned honorable attachment issues. And when they probe in, they said somebody paid him money to come and say what he said. And because of that, special prosecutor is holding him and his accomplices.
So you're daring
to
put out the information.
You speak, when they were doing their research, I remember he was one who spoke to me via Zoom also. He was pushing Mr. Sogah, so have you ever paid bribe to anybody? Have you ever paid bribe to
He was pushing you?
I'm telling you. So, my brother, I think, let me say that in the port community, we are not happy with the report, how the report is till. I know very well that since the ICOMS came, it was one of the classic areas that the government touted that was going to close the loops. Indeed, when ICOMS was implemented, within the first 2 years, we all saw the revenue. The president made mention of it. The finance minister made mention of it. Anywhere you go in government communicators be mentioning that. And of course, the ease of doing business is very important, which we are all enjoying. Now, this cartel that you've been talking about, this corruption, I am not going to say that the port there is saint. Or everybody there is clean. We are dealing with human institutions. Even your own house here, you might see someone impersonating. So, or doing things that management haven't sanctioned it. So I cannot sit here and knock.
In fact, you can't do that looking at historical evidence. For instance, there's work that's been done by other independent bodies and investigative entities suggesting that between GRA officials and some importers and exporters, there is established base for corruption. So even if you dispute what Imani Africa is telling you, there is evidence to suggest
that.
So
he talk about...
I'll give you the opportunity.
So he talk about tax exemption.
Yeah, right.
He talk about tax exemption. I want to understand that it's not the importers who give the exemptions at the port. It's not the people at the port. It is government policies. It is government of Ghana. And I'm sure he's very much aware that the exemption, this tax bill has been passed by parliament. All of us have been talking about it, that the exemption that have been given out at the port there does not even go to Ghanaians. We know it. We've been raising the issues every day. If you go to MPS Terminal 3, when it was built, you know how much millions of dollars that was given by government of Ghana because they come to invest. And many more companies are there. So I want you to understand that it's not the import that they are pointing fingers at. The other aspects, there was what do you call it, an investigation by the special prosecutor. Is that not it?
Right.
And they are diving into it to say that there are suggestions. What they were seeing, they may say that they were, or they say that they were hearing. They think they want to collaborate with what the report says. But you see, I am not against the special prosecutor. I respect the special prosecutor office because you and I and him, our mandate, because that was why he went through parliament to be vetted and approved. So it's all of us, our office. That's our hope. He should do his work. But let me tell you something. I have seen the report of the special prosecutor, isn't it? Yeah. Which tell us that at some point there was an application for benchmark special advanced ruling. Yes. At some point, it was that advanced ruling was thrown away. And at some point, there was a special 10%, 5 to 10% discount given. Is that not it?
Right.
Which is not consonant with the laws of our Custom Act, Custom Management Act 891. Is that not it? Now, let me tell you, then custom has been doing a wrong thing long ago, because I will open to the custom law and tell you what custom supposed to be doing, which custom has not been doing for several years now. Go to, if you have the Act, Custom Act 891.
Do we give you some time to look for
No,
while I bring in Dr. Obeng then?
Okay, so you can...
So let me bring in Dr. Obeng at this point while you get that portion for me. Dennis, in fact, you'll respond to all of the claims shortly. But Dr. Joseph Obeng, I recall that just about a fortnight ago, you issued a statement clearly indicating that government policy measures are not helping, the cedi is depreciating, and your capital is being eroded. But it is emerging tonight that, in fact, you, the business community, are part of the problem, and that there is serious revenue leakage at the ports. Would you agree that, as the Ghana Union of Traders Association, you're complicit in this act?
Yes, there is serious leakage at the port, and if systems are not changed, it will continue. It is not something that is being enjoyed only by the traders, importers. Is being enjoyed by politicians, by GRA itself, by everybody, by the system itself. So we have to find the laws and the rules and engagement, and then tighten whatever is going on at the port. Let me tell you, the tax system itself, the tax administration that we are having breeds corruption, because it's not even affordable. Any tax that is not affordable breeds corruption.
When you say, and I'm sorry for cutting through, but when you say it's not affordable, just explain that for us.
The duties and the various levies that has lined up at the port are so many. Now we have about 19. When the vice president was bringing the paperless system, it was thrown down to 12. Now it has gone back to 19. That's the item list of levies and taxes and what have you. And if you compare in the sub-region or even in the world, we are about the most taxed importers in the whole of the world. You can't compare it in a sub-region.
But so I'm not sure that what you're implying, therefore, is that you're justifying justifying cronyism, extortion, which some of your members are engaged in. I'm not sure you're justifying that.
No, I'm talking to the truth. What I'm saying is that if we do not do the right things, when...
Dr. Obeng? Dr. Obeng, are you still with us? You were making a point there.
When the tax system is unaffordable, because the tax, if tax is not affordable, there's no compliance. People go behind and then do whatever they want to do. So first, the taxes that we pay are astronomically high, and it induces people to go up. And then there's discretion, a lot of discretions at the port. And then people also tend to abuse those discretions. There's no equity and fairness. Where people have exemptions, others do not have. So when you go for a particular product where the prices would have, the duties would have been uniform, there's no uniformity, even in the duties. So people actually shop. They go around and shop for what is cheap. Let me tell you, the gentleman was talking about under-declaration.
Right.
What do people even under-declare? Where initially people bring their correct invoice values, then customs upgrade it.
Exactly.
So whatever amount, whether it's correct or not, then there's discretion on the part of the customs officer at his own will, and say that that value that you brought have been upgraded. So what you do to the person who have brought the correct invoice, the next time when he's bringing He said that whichever amount that I'm going to submit to these people, they are going to upgrade it. So let me reduce it so that when they upgrade it, it comes to normal.
Yes, but Doc, some would argue that there's enough redress in the law. For instance, in the Customs Act, there's provision for a post-import audit. I mean, these provisions, would you say that is because they are not strictly enforcing them, and that's why we have that laxity in the law?
No, because we have to look at the whole thing in a holistic manner. We have to bring laws that to ensure that there's no discretion at the port. We have to make sure that our tax regime, as we have it now, is very affordable, that it will not induce this corruption.
All right.
That there's clarity, that people might not go shopping for an agent who can give them cheaper things. If you have the law and people know how much we are coming to pay when we bring our goods, nobody will do any corruption. Now, the whole place is, there's gray areas at the port, and so people find it easy, and then corruption is very, at its maximum best.
All right, then.
So, say that there's no corruption at the port, I will be the last person to say that. But then it is the system. The system itself breeds corruption. The system that we have now breeds corruption, and it's being enjoyed by everybody. It's being enjoyed by whoever is going to give the tax exemption.
I like the way you're being frank tonight, but Samson Asake was just about pointing. Yes, Doc, I'll definitely come back to you. But I like the way you're being frank about this. Samson Asake was about pointing us to a section of the law.
I'm taking that to Custom Act 2015 Act 891, Section 68. It stated that where custom values cannot be determined. Okay, because this is what custom use. For me to read.
So you're talking about the portion relating to valuation,
exactly.
Right? Which gives the discretion to the officers.
So they're saying that a transactional value of identical goods sold for export to this country and export within 3 months of the date of the export of the goods being valued. B, you see, or you use the transaction value of a similar goods sold for export. You understand?
Yeah.
But when you come to custom, see, talk to or you use the deductive value, which is the value based on the unit price at which the imported goods or identical or similar imported goods are sold.
Basically, what you're referring to is about the rules regarding valuation.
Supposed to use.
Yes, evaluating your imports.
What is happening in custom now? Is what the law frown is what custom have been doing.
Okay.
Just like Mr. Oben was saying, Dr. Oben was saying, I bring my invoice to you. They're supposed to accept my values. If the transactional value, if I submit to custom might use my value to assess me. But what the custom do? The law
they resort to the benchmark.
Their own act.
As you were
No. Their own act. If you go to the same section 68, down, you say custom values. Sorry, let me give you.
I guess you're referring to F, right?
Custom values shall not be determined on the basis of any of these following. That is section 68.3. Section 68. Now, A, it talks about the selling price of goods produced in this country. A system that provides for the appropriate appraisement.
I get the point you're making. You're referring to F. The point you are referring to is F. Trying to state, just hold on for me. You're trying to state that the use of the benchmark values is not legitimate. That's the point you wanted to establish. And for which reason you believe the valuation should not be done the way it's being done.
If what they are not supposed to be saying, they should accept the imported values. But they are doing this. Now, I'm taking you back to what the special prosecutor said. It says that what the custom officer did to the company in Tema was not grounded in law. And he went ahead to state that the Commissioner General was not in notice. That's why we released the Commissioner General. Now, this is the letter the Commissioner General wrote to the whole Ghana yesterday. The Commissioner General ran away from his own officers for wrongdoing, saying that if I can read,
you are talking about the Colonel Damois situation.
The Commissioner General, yes, Colonel Damois situations. The Commissioner General distanced himself from Colonel Damois, which Colonel Damois is still an officer of the GRA. This is about GRA. Now, if you go to paragraph 4 and 5. The Commissioner General stated clearly that GRA wishes to assure the general public that prior to the release of the OSP report,
But
it has taken steps, listen,
Okay.
to streamline and improve on the process of accurately determining values of imported items and products. With the inauguration of the new GRA Board of Directors in August 2021, the authority took firm steps to deal with practices or procedures that had the potential of reducing or giving.
And Mr. Wango, but your point basically
this means that the Commissioner General was aware that there were discount given to custom importers, that there were rebate given to importers, that the custom officers at the time were having discretionary powers.
Right. So that's where you have a problem.
Yes. So he cannot run away from this. Together, that means this was a practice under which he was the chief scribe officer of the GRA. So where
with or without the new board, as you're arguing?
No, there was a board.
So even if it's old or new, even if it's old or new, your argument is this is what they've been doing.
He was there before election.
Right.
No, wait. He was there before election. He was with the board.
Right.
After that, after election, they appointed a new board in August. Is that not it?
Yeah.
And that board came to realize this, and they issued this. Did Educate give the discount to the CEO at the time they gave this directive on 21st of December?
Okay.
Or before?
So your point is it's a practice that's endemic at the GRA.
If this before this directive, then the Commissioner General was aware of what was happening.
Right.
Now I have seen the report that the special prosecutor advertised, saying that the Commissioner of Customs should bring in the report before 31st of December.
Yes.
Now, why should the special prosecutor, I respect his office, all right, but why would the special prosecutor wrote direct to GRA Customs Division straight? How can the Customs Division Commissioner and the Commissioner General will be able to wake up without recourse to the board, without recourse to the authority, it will collect the institutional documents and go to another.
Okay, these are legal issues that you are also arguing about. So, but I want us to deal with the crux of the matters, which has got to do with improving port governance. I just want us to establish that. So, where do we go from here? And Dennis, I'll come back to you in terms of the solution.
So, where we go from here?
What's your expectation?
One, I want to say that if you look at custom GRA board, since Mr. Blanchard time to Council time, not Council, what's the Kofinity time, to this Reverend Amisadai. The board of directors, there's no, in GRA, we have two divisions, domestic and custom division. In the board of directors, they have never appointed seasoned custom officer into their board. It does never happen.
So that's part of the defect for you.
That's the part. So sometimes the board might take decisions without even having understanding how the operationals of custom and procedure are. So I'm saying that if government is listening, then they need to appoint seasoned custom officer to be at the board. So sometimes when the board want to take decision, they will ask of technical.
So that they would have a technical understanding of whatever decision they're taking.
You cannot appoint a board who doesn't understand the process and the procedure of custom. Then everybody will.
That's a critical point you're raising.
Yes.
Because and I'll come back to you, Mr. Wingo, but in the report, you are talking about influence peddling. And this is critically coming through from political or state actors, as you're describing them, and politically exposed persons. Could it be the case that looking at the governance structure, you look at those at the top, they are mostly appointed by the executive, and these are highly politically exposed persons. So is that where the key problem is from the report that we're gathering?
Yeah, so Blessed, you see that in the conversation between the presentation by Mr. Wingobert
and then
Dr.
Joseph,
you see that clearly they affirm the findings of our report that corruption, illegality, insider manipulation is happening.
I will go to take you on that.
So
I have never said that. I said the report is not the same.
I said that. Just hold on. I'll give you the time.
Clearly, they establish a fact that there are some insider manipulation, corruption, and criminality happening. And it is happening because the institutional architecture and political settlement governing the whole port management doesn't lend itself to be transparent and open as well as accountable. So we have excessive influence of the executive arm of government over GPHA, customs activities, even in broader GRA. And these are the two key agencies managing our port. And politically exposed persons who have influence within the executive and also do business within the port tend to leverage this influence to perpetrate some of these corrupt activities.
Yes, but then if the posture is that you're calling basically for independence of these structures, just hold on for me.
Okay.
If that's the and point where you're looking for a total independence, there may be a problem because you look at some portions of our constitution which governs taxation.
Yeah.
It then brings you back into the political sphere. For instance, if you want to waive taxes, you need parliamentary approval.
Yes.
It puts you into a political sphere. So you don't expect that, for instance, the Ports and Harbour Authority would operate without policy directives. So how do we strike the balance? And how do we not entirely take away the executive control?
So what we are saying is that because some of these decisions are likely to be conflicted by people who have different interests within the space, if you are setting up a decision-making body, like in terms of customs advance ruling, like giving exemptions or any incentive within the business sphere, then the committee or the decision-making body shouldn't be made up of only political appointees or people who work within government.
People who have custom background. That's what I'm talking about. I'm saying the board, with the need.
You have a problem with the board, I see.
Of course, it is important.
That's what I'm saying, that the people who take these decisions, there should be some level of independent people within these groups so that in terms of administering some of these functions, there is that clarity in terms of ensuring that any decision that is taken is devoid of all sort of influence coming from
So give us a
different
scenario
comments.
in terms of the solution.
So, for example, in terms of even this advance ruling,
Right.
if you read the OSP's report, he mentioned that a committee within customs gave an advice and the first application. And in terms of even the approval, you see centralization of approval of some of these activities, that if you hand over such power to an individual to approve in terms of giving waivers to traders, that single individual works for...
That's just on paper. For my checks, that's just on paper because the powers are delegated from the Commissioner General.
But you saw the Commissioner General running away
from his own.
If you look at this,
just hold on. I'll come to you.
If you look at the institutional architecture and core influence dynamics, that person's work can be influenced by people within our political settlement or our political institutions. So what you do is that such decision making ensure transparency in terms of publication of data. How many advance rulings are given within a year? How much waivers are given within a year? Publish all of that. In terms of the decision-making bodies doing these functions, make sure they are independent other trader bodies within these groups or independent experts who cannot be influenced largely within some of these.
For the sake of time,
another thing that we can also do is that in terms of this whole governance architecture in managing port administration, the time has come for us to start considering that in terms of the role of GPHA or within the ports, should we start considering an instance where they can play the role as a regulator and allow the business function and efficiency
to run the place
to be run by private?
And I'll tell you what, the basic point. Just hold on, just hold on. The basic point, and we'll come to that. Just hold on. The starting point, but just hold on. The starting point for the Office of the Special Prosecutor is for two items, the specifics being an audit, a complete audit, starting from 2017. We'll talk about that. But he says, let's start off with an integrity plan.
Yes.
Draw up an integrity plan as the Ghana Revenue Authority and let that govern, for instance, the customs advance rulings. You agree with that as Imani Africa?
Within our report, we made that recommendation that it is time for us to look at a whole custom integrity plan. It's not as if they don't have. The World Customs Organization has these integrity programs that they implement. And so that is one recommendation. Another recommendation that we also made is that there should be that transparency. There's a Joint Custom Consultative Committee that works within the port. How do we bring such committee into some of these critical decision making so that all the stakeholders within the space come to the table in terms of some of these decision-making activities? Again, what we also recommended was that in terms of these audits that needs to be done, it shouldn't be done by only the state agency. As part of the OSP's work.
Just tolerate him.
No.
Tolerate him. Let him land on the point.
Yes, check it all the time.
No, I'll come to you.
Good. And as part of some of the recommendations that we also made was that in terms of the state side actors, we need to ensure full implementation of the whistleblower policies that protects and ensure some of these informants who make some of these things known to the state and ensure that people come out with information. And when they come out with information, clearly we follow up and implement.
You say whistleblower that went to special prosecutor and cannot substantiate. That's what people are just told to eyes. They are attacking everybody at the port to be criminal, to be concealed with tax.
You feel that's affecting investor confidence?
Of course, yes. It is putting the country at risk. Because look, if you are attacking your custom integrity like that, then any investor who want to come to your country, first priority is to look at your custom processes and procedure. if they are, hold on, my brother. No, no.
So let's
So now,
yeah,
now when you
him
look at
as
the Commissioner
well.
General report here, he stated above that that the GRA is ensuring that all unreasonable exercise of discretionary power, which will result in the loss of revenue, will be prevented. So the point is, which one is unreasonable and which one is reasonable?
That's the big question you're asking.
It means GRA Commissioner General was aware of what was perpetrated and what has brought us to where you are today. Now, GPHA is a landlord. They are providing facilities, logistics, but the one who's supposed to assess and collect tax on behalf of the state is GRA.
Okay.
And I'm saying that in GRA, the problem now we're having at GRA now is the board of governors in GRA, custom, there's nothing like former custom officer serving.
Okay, so while we await all of these reforms, the specifics is that in terms of action, we're seeing some commitment from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. I want to start off with Dr. Joseph Obeng.
Dr. Obeng raised issue about taxation, which he didn't understand. Is if you look at the whole West Africa,
let me bring in Doc.
We have the highest tax, and frozen food people, they pay over 35% import tax. If you go to our neighboring countries here, Africa, they are paying 25% import tax. We are paying 35%.
I get the concern, and it's also been raised by Dr. Joseph Obeng. But let's now move into the next phase of it. Practicality. The Office of the Special Prosecutor says, I'm going way back to 2017. I'm doing an audit of the custom advanced rulings and the markdown in benchmark values. For you, will that solve partly the big challenge we have there at the port?
Give all the time to this man. Bless.
Doc, you'd have to unmute for me so I can hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, with the La Bianca thing, the special prosecutor, GRA, and all that, let's not make anybody, any official at Customs escape. It's an act of it. If it is not good, let's expunge it. It's as simple as that. Let's not make, because you make acts and then it guides the activities of officials. If care is not taken, you kill the initiative of your officialdom. So you have the laws, the rules and the engagement. You have the Customs Act. If you want to amend it, you amend it to make it so that nobody can use his discretion or can do anything. We are making a lot of noise about this, and then we are just making people unnecessarily scapegoats.
Am I getting the impression that you're saying it's not necessary, Doc? Am I getting that impression that you're saying it's not necessary for the Office of the Special Prosecutor to carry out an audit way back from 2017? He says, I mean, looking at the tip of the iceberg, which is the La Bianca case, a lot could have gone wrong. You feel a lot of what has passed under the bridge, there's no need going back to look for what's happened in the past. Is that what you're saying?
If you provide gray areas, people might use those gray areas. If you provide discretion, people will use. It all comes back to the law, the act that governs the customs law. Just amend it to suit you. And this one, I can say, is that we are just making unnecessary laws, annoyances. Let's put this one behind. Let's use this as a test case to amend our laws, to firm it, so that it doesn't happen again.
A lot of Ghanaians will disagree with you. Tax revenue being lost, and you're saying, don't go after it.
I tell you, we are behaving as if we do not have tax audits. We do it every 2 years for all businesses. So we are behaving and we are blowing these things out of proportion to make the business people as if we are not being audited. We do this audit every 2 years. So if we are not doing it well, then it's a question mark. Businesses are suffering, and it should not be said that maybe we are putting the focus only on businesses. Where we have a political lineup of cases there, we left it, and now the focus is going to be geared only to businesses. I won't buy that, because we have every 2 years we do post-clearance audit, and we are made to pay the shortfalls that we did not collect. So it's not something that it is some strange something. Okay. It's something that customs have their own rules and engagement, and they are following it. The special prosecutor is bringing a new angle, but it's something that is already being made, being done. by customs, and we should not
All right.
do anything to kill the institution of customs. But customs is working. We do not have to behave as if customs is dead because of one issue, La Bianca, where they acted upon an act of the customs law. If the customs law is not good, just expunge it and let's move on.
Because we don't have all of the time, let me wrap up with you on this point. For you as Guta, what changes would you want to see practically at GRA in terms of improving port governance? In just a minute, if you could just wrap up on that point for me.
Yeah, all that we have to look at is affordability, and then take anything that goes on this discretion, that gives discretion to GRA members, that we should ensure fairness and parity, and that if you are able to do this, everybody will be on board doing the right thing. But as the structures are now, it breeds corruption. And that's why we see corruption all the time. So we have to do the right thing, put the necessary structures, put the necessary laws to tighten things, and then make taxes affordable, that people may not find it necessary to go underhand. Yeah.
Dr. Obeng, thank you. Samson Asakia Wingobit.
So our tax rate is something that we need to really look at it, because remember in 2015 we brought in this ECOWAS Common External Tariff, where we implemented the highest. Right like this, if you go to Africa's Narrow, they are taking 10%. In Ghana, we are taking 20%, which ECOWAS Common External Tariff says 10%. Frozen food, if you go to Africa Coast and Togo and other things, it is 25%. We are taking it 35%. That is why we are paying duty plus before fees and charges. Again, I think the GRA there, from the Commissioner General to Commissioner of Custom to the support commissioner, Deputy Commissioner in charge of support, there's a problem there. The president or the government or the chief of staff, they should put down their foot and find out, because the Commissioner General support to work with his lieutenants. And if you are there having issues with your lieutenants, trying to plug someone to be a scapegoat and use, because I see no reason why the Canada more is still at post. Then you go and issue state. I thought they should have, if they should have, as an institution, they should have accepted the bullet. They should have bite the bullet. Say, we accepted whatever my men have done. Then it is I have taken the blame. We are apologizing on behalf. We will deal with our staff in-house. And whatever recommendation the special prosecutor will bring across, we will handle. But not to do this way. I totally disagree with what the Commissioner General and his board have done. And so, if the president will listen to me, I'm saying that fire the Commissioner General, fire the Deputy Commissioner in charge of support, fire the Commissioner of Custom, fire the board, constitute new.
Okay. Let's look
so you bring integrity, you bring confidence back. Because as it stands now, until the Commissioner General is ready to work with his deputies, they will still be power wrangling in GRA.
So let me give the final thought to Dennis. Now,
or they all be at post. Or they all be at post. No one is going anywhere.
Okay. So in dealing with the problem between sanctions and new systems, where do you place the priority as we wrap up on this conversation?
I think we should find a way to merge the two, because, the conversation we themed it anatomy of corruption. And we've clearly identified that the political institution we have built to manage port administration is not lending itself to ensure transparency and openness. Again, there's excessive centralization of decision-making that makes it possible for some of these corruption and influence peddling to happen within the port. Let's build a system that allows transparency, accountability and openness, again, that enforces sanctions, so that when the action is undertaken and it's not in compliance with the law, that same system has the power to punish. When I brought in GPHA, what I was trying to cite is that it appears that we have two regimes within the port.
No. GPHA is a landlord.
Let's find a way
MPS
to harmonize
and
ensure efficiency, so that even if someone is within some of these institutions on their board, the level of influence over operations on the activity within the port will be minimal. That was what I was saying.
GPHA is the landlord. GPHA is the landlord. MPS is a terminal.
Anyway,
oversight responsibility.
Yes, I guess the disagreements will continue, but the consensus is one, that La Bianca is just the tip of the iceberg. But of course, the issues remain unresolved in terms of port corruption, as you may want to call it. I'm grateful to Dennis Asari, research consultant, Imani Africa, Dr. Joseph Obeng, president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, and Samson Asaki Awingobit, executive secretary, Importers and Exporters Association. I am Blessed Sogah. Do log on to myjoyonline.com. We'll see you same time tomorrow.